Pyramid selling is illegal in this country. So, the companies that we operate with are all operating within the letter of the law.
Well, hello and welcome back into the Direct Selling Accelerator podcast. My name is Sam and I am super passionate about this incredible industry that I get to serve every single day through this podcast. The direct selling industry is one that changes lives on a global level, but it's also extraordinarily misunderstood. And today I want to bring to the forefront a conversation that I know has been had by almost every person at some point when it comes to this industry as a whole. And that is, we want to talk today about pyramid schemes, Ponzi schemes, and how they correlate with the direct selling industry or don't correlate for that matter. We want to talk about the difference between scams and what's real, what's safe and what's not, how to know what companies are doing the right thing in this industry and which ones to be just a little bit wary of right now. We want to walk this line very carefully today because I know that this can be a very sensitive topic, especially for anyone that feels like they may have been burned by a business or an opportunity in the past and they're wondering, what can I or should I do moving forward if I want to take up one of these amazing opportunities that have been presented to me right now. And so there was no better person for me to bring in to have this conversation, which is the part 2 of our scams series, none other than Geoff Mulham, the CEO of the Direct Selling Association of Australia. Geoff comes to us with an incredible experience in this industry of over 30 years. Geoff has worked with direct selling companies from a corporate or a high senior level, such as Amway, Nutramedics, Manatech, and USANA, to name a few. He is incredibly passionate about this industry, and in 2022, he was appointed the CEO of the Direct Selling Association and is here to advocate on behalf of all of the companies that make up this amazing industry here in Australia. Geoff shares a little bit in this episode about what we should watch out for, what are the differences between pyramid schemes, Ponzi schemes, and of course the direct selling industry, how to identify what's safe and what's not, and what to do if you see some behaviors that maybe we need to be a little bit wary of. So let's all work together, first of all, to protect this incredible industry. And also, we want to help you make some good decisions for you, for your future, and also for your potential team moving forward as well. So with all of that being said, I'm going to hand over now so you can listen to this interview. I know that if you are trying to grow a business in this space, or if you've been asking the question, should I grow a business in this space, this is absolutely the episode for you. Welcome back into the Direct Selling Accelerator podcast, and welcome in Geoff Mulham, CEO of the Direct Selling Association of Australia. It's so great to have you with us today.
Thank you. Nice to be here, Sam.
Now, are you impressed I didn't say DSA?
Very good, very good. Yes. I've stumbled back into that myself, though, and for those watching, listening, we try and spell out Direct Selling Australia, so we tried to drop the acronym, but even I'm falling back into it a bit.
Well, last year at the conference, if I remember correctly, when you did decide to move it from DSA to Direct Selling Association, you actually had a bit of a swear jar, didn't you, at the front of the room? Yeah.
I did. It was $10 in the jar if you said DSA. And
yes. How much did you make?
I think someone cheekily put like $1.40 in there or something, and that's about all there was.
That was all there was. Well, I can tell you that you actually did have an impression, because I have had multiple conversations over the last 12 months with contacts who I have noticed actually corrected themselves during our conversation. I went, oh no, it's the Direct Selling Association. I thought Geoff would be so proud. So there you go.
Very good. Thank you. That's wonderful.
Well, Geoff, I'm so glad to have you here today, because we are going to be chatting about scams, and specifically scams relating to the Direct Selling Association. I think this is a very hot topic. It's also a very controversial topic, and neither you or I are afraid to walk the line here. And you did make mention to me earlier that you get into trouble all the time. So, I mean, this episode could get very interesting. But just before we get stuck in, I'd love for you to share a fun fact about you. I'd love for our audience to get to know you a little bit better like I know you.
A fun fact. Well, because we're doing a direct selling one, I'll tell you a direct selling fun fact. But I think you know that my dad was involved in direct selling. That's how we got started in when he was the first general manager of Amway in Australia in the 70s. And then we moved to America, and I actually worked for Amway. They had a labour pool, and I worked in that. And one of my first jobs was to go to one of Jay Van Andel's houses, the founder of Amway, who was a multi-squillionaire, and clean out all the dog poo out of his kennels. And so I feel that I've got a real connection to direct selling through that, going back some 50 years.
You know, and you never would have at the time appreciated that, but I'm sure that you appreciate it now looking back, right?
I do. I think of that. I think what a great connection, what a great start into the industry that was.
Getting your feet dirty, quite literally.
Exactly. Yeah.
I love it. Well, Geoff, you've got so much experience in this industry from being in it yourself, being in corporate. You've worked with several different companies. You've got family very much so in the industry as well. And as we've shared from your bio, obviously you're very passionate about this industry and where it's going. And as such, I know you and I have chats every so often about, some of the challenges that we face as well, because we want to see people trying to grow their business, being able to do it successfully. But there is the challenge that we face, of course, which is, I suppose, a little bit of what I call, dirty shoes, which is when we've got past history that's created, a lot of long-term memories for people. And, I remember, and we still talk about now, the whiteboard days where you'd get invited to come over for dinner, and then halfway through dinner, the whiteboard would get wheeled out and you'll be like, this was not for dinner.
Yeah.
And so, this industry does unfortunately gather or have a little bit of a reputation, which can make it difficult for people trying to grow their business in the modern day that we're in, which can be hard. But I want to give people today a little bit of, I guess, some armor so that they can understand, what they can say and do, also what they need to be mindful of, some of those landmines that might be out there at the moment. And I want to start with the P word. I'd like to chat about pyramid selling and Ponzi schemes, as some people know them as. And I'd like to talk about what's the difference between those and the direct selling industry.
So, and maybe to preface the answer to that, Sam, it's good to think about why Direct Selling Australia, or DSA as it was known, was formed back in the I think it was 50s or 60s in Australia.
Wow, I didn't realise it was that long ago.
It's 57. It's our 57th year this year, would you believe?
Wow, that's amazing.
And recently I spoke to Imelda Roach, who's a friend of ours, and who just turned 90 the other day.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah, so for those that are unsure, Imelda is the founder of Nutrimetics in Australia. She is one of my absolute idols. I love her very, very much, and she is just such a beautiful, beautiful woman.
She is. Yeah. But I was asking her about some history of, why they started the DSA, as it was called then. And she was one of the people, she and her husband Bill, were one of the first half a dozen companies. But they put it together because there were companies around who weren't doing the right thing, and they wanted to set the bar and have some sort of a watchdog that protected this great industry from those people who were not doing the right thing. Mm-hmm. And it separated the men from the boys, so to speak, or the girls from the little girls. And so at that time, they set a criteria for what was happening. And also around that time, pyramid selling was outlawed in Australia. Yeah. I think around the 60s or 70s, which was great. And the way that they set up, and I was reviewing the legislation before this call, but primarily it comes down to product. The difference between people who are chasing those schemes and trying to get people to sign up into a pyramid or a Ponzi or anything that's not legitimate. They're trying to sign up. They're trying to get money out of people. So there's very little talk about product. If it is spoken about, it's in the background.
Yes.
And so the difference between a direct selling company and a pyramid schemes primarily are looking for people to pay to join, or they're offering a payment for recruitment.
Yep.
Now, of course, in most direct selling companies, as we know, Sam, there's an annual membership fee. It might be $50 or $70 to cover administration costs. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about a more substantial fee that will often get charged. It might be several $1,000s, or it might be, and an inducement to recruit and so on. So really that's the main difference. In the old days, which we don't see much nowadays, but people would also, part of that large payment was to buy stock. And so you found, in the 70s and 60s, when you had some somewhat scrupulous companies running around, and they would encourage, what they called inventory loading, where people would have to, keep $3,000 or $4,000 or $5,000 worth of stock in your garage. And of course, that's discouraged now and in fact frowned upon. And so it's another way of getting people to spend money. So that's the main difference, is that inducement to pay to join, to pay to get recruits in, and to pay for additional stock.
Yeah. And there is a difference as well, isn't there, Geoff, in the actual, and we say pyramid because it's about the person at the top keeps getting richer while the person at the bottom can never actually, work their way up to that point. Or there's the thing about, and I think it was Celine actually that explained it on one of our episodes quite some time ago. She talked about how, with direct selling, you can start a business and overtake the person that recruited you at any point. It's all based on what you put in. But with pyramid selling, you could never overtake the person that recruited you. Is that a fair way of explaining that?
It depends on the situation, but yes, that generally is. It'd be very hard to overtake that person above you. So, of course, in our industry, anyone can aspire to be at the top of the tree of a hierarchy, just like you can in any normal business. You have a CEO, you have a founder, and they start the business, and anyone can come in and move up through those businesses to a senior management role, or even a founding role, or a shareholder role, or whatever. And it's the same in direct selling. You're right.
Yeah. So, Geoff, I want to talk, because one of the things that we've spoken about here is, of course, the fact that pyramid selling is illegal. It's illegal in Australia. It's illegal in the US. So pretty much anyone listening to this episode can be pretty assured that pyramid selling is still illegal. But of course, a company that can say that they're a DSA member has to follow certain guidelines, as you just explained. What are some of those things that they have to follow? What are some of those guidelines or those boxes they have to tick in order to assure that they're a safe company and that they, in fact, are doing the right thing and not considered a pyramid selling
That's right.
business?
Yeah. So we have a really rigorous process when someone applies to join us. And that involves checking their credentials, checking their history. If they are a company that has health products, for example, which a lot of our direct sellers do, their products have to be TGA registered in Australia. That's a criteria. We look at their compensation plan to make sure that the compensation. We look at their contracts. We look through every level of communication. We're particularly interested in their complaint process to make sure that they have an open communication. Yep. And we particularly look at their compliance standards and who manages that. So it comes down to pretty much pulling apart every aspect of what they do and making sure that they're within the letter of the law, that they're following the correct consumer laws in Australia. And our standards are all about making sure that they're doing the right thing by people, that they're not making any claims which are beyond expectations and reality. Nowadays, all of the companies that are doing the right thing usually have an income disclaimer, as you know, Sam, so that when they're saying to people, look, we do have people who are earning this type of income. This is generally how many there are, and these are the number of people who are earning this level of income. And so,
Yeah.
it's about being realistic and making sure that people are being fair and honest in their communications. And so, we have a full-time lawyer in our office in Direct Selling Australia, and they spend a lot of their time looking at those membership applications, and we review them every 2 years as well to make sure that if they've made any changes to their compensation plan, that their contract is correct and looking good as well. And not everyone, we knock back 2 or 3 or 4 applications a year as well, so not everyone can come in.
Geoff, I want to know why you think that there might still be some confusion around. I mean, pyramid selling, like you said, has been illegal for many, many decades, right? Many years. It's not something that's only recently people have realized is a bad thing and have got on top of it. The direct selling industry has been working very, very hard to separate out those companies that are above board versus the ones that, may be doing some let's say, shadier operations.
Yeah.
And there can be a little bit of a grey line there, I think, sometimes, because you can, as you've said, have companies that, are all above board and suddenly they make a change to their compensation plan that sort of slips them a little bit below that line, and hence why you guys are here to make sure that people are playing above board all of the time. But why do you think there's still confusion around pyramid selling with direct selling? You hear people often will say, is that a pyramid selling company? Is that a pyramid scheme? Why do you, again, it's been so many years. Why do you think we're still battling this?
I don't know. It's because people often say the same thing to me, oh, you mean that pyramid thing, and it's odd. And I go, no, actually, pyramid selling is illegal in this country. So, the companies that we operate with are all operating within the letter of the law. Yes. But I think metaphorically, we're associated them with those types of companies historically. And so people still go, oh, yeah, direct selling, pyramid selling, because I suppose it comes down to the fact that when a lot of, the early direct selling companies started, they were offering an income opportunity to people who generally were not able to earn the types of incomes that they could. Mm-hmm. And so I think some of these less reputable companies started emulating that model. And so they then became like, oh, they're direct, and they jumped into our space and kind of, poached the idea, but with a dodgy model. And so it gave us a bit of it tarred us with that brush, which is unfortunate. And it's still a bit of a stigma around today. But I do think the best thing for people to do is to say, is that, because generally they're going to say, aren't you a pyramid? No, the answer is pyramid selling is illegal in this country, and we couldn't operate if we were a pyramid company. And certainly not as a member of Direct Selling Australia.
Yeah. And is there something that people can say? Let's say we've got many, many distributors listen to this podcast every week, and a lot of them are probably wondering, what is something I can say to explain the difference that's really easy for anyone to understand without sort of going into things in depth? Is there something that they can say that, you can think of? And I've not prepared you for this, so I'm putting you on the spot here now, Geoff. But is there something that you can think of that they can say really quickly and easily that would be understandable to anybody asking that question?
Look, I think it comes down to legality to a big point, as I've just said. So, I always lead with that first of all, but then I say, the difference really is that we're selling a product, and those businesses that do that, there may be a product somewhere in the background, but it's so far away from the conversation. And we legitimately want to share a product with you, just like you would in a retail situation. You go into a shop, you want to buy a product, you buy it, you pay your money. And we're doing the same thing. Now, of course, we have a broader opportunity for you in that you can start your own business just like you could if you were a franchisee for Harvey Norman or a franchisee for IGA or whatever. You could expand beyond being a customer to starting to go, I like that concept. I like those products and I like how they're sold. I'd like to expand into that too. And so, it's a good, metaphorically, it's like being a taxi driver. You can come and work for someone else because you like, you can ride in a taxi because it's a good service. You can then go, I could make some money doing that. And as we've seen historically, people often buy 5 or 6 taxis, and have those licenses. And so, I don't know whether that's an easier explanation, but I think if you compare it to a retail situation where product is the key and product is the hero, that's the big difference. We just want to share a product that we have with people. And if they want to then share that with more of their friends, they can do that.
Yeah. I think the other thing to note as well, which is fairly important, is, whilst you can't make commission claims and income claims, etc., it's important to remember that is one of the key differences, is that you, technically speaking, this business can't make and shouldn't make income claims because it's about how hard you work, but you do get rewarded for the work that you put in. And it's, I think a key word for me with the whole thing is pyramid scheme. It's a scheme versus it being a business, and it's just a different way to get into business. Just like you said quite rightly, a franchise would be the same thing. If you bought a franchise, you pay your money, you get the business, you work the business. The success of the business is based on how hard you work and what you do. So, my question next around this, though, is, are there still some scams and pyramid schemes out there in Australia and perhaps the US that we need to watch out for? Is it still a thing? Are people still popping up doing this, even though, we're talking about it being something that's illegal? Is it still out there?
Look, there are some. They're different to what they used to be. And we're seeing now, look at all the things that are happening online now. I mean, you're talking to some people, our friends, about cyberwarden security, I think, at some point soon.
They'll be chatting with us on the next episode where we're going to be talking about, scams from a slightly different perspective.
Yeah, but, there are so many things you've got to be wary of, and many of them are coming in with a different face. But there are still, I wouldn't say you see things in the traditional pyramid structure as you would, when they first started coming out. They're a little more guarded. They've got a different face on them, but you've still got to keep an eye out for them. And I'd say the same thing. Look, if you see something that looks too good to be true, that's probably because it's not true. And if they're making if they're asking you to put up a substantial amount of money to be involved, I'd be really questioning that. Why would you do that?
Yeah, it's not necessary.
Yeah. Why do that? So I think there are a few around. I don't think they're hard to figure out who they are and what they're doing, but I know most people are lured by the prospect of big income. And that's generally what you see now with the ones that are going online. And oftentimes too, Sam, it's not always the company, but often people within the company who have gone a little bit rogue and gone off on their own. The company is not reining them in, and we see them. They're the couple that I see around now where they're making excessive claims online about big income numbers, and they'd be the ones that I'd be looking out for and steering away from,
Yeah. So, I mean, what we're looking at here, of course, is, and I like what you said about if it's too good to be true. I like the quote, if it looks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, guys, it's a duck, So I think, you do kind of have to apply that instinct, which you have, if something seems a little bit off, it probably is a little bit off. But the other thing, that I guess is frustrating me of recent times is the behavior online. One of the things that we didn't have to battle back, in the 60s, 70s, 80s, and even 90s was that anything that did happen that was a little on the dodgier side, of course, was sort of kept within the confines of the people the networks of people that were doing them.
Yep.
But now we've got a situation where one person does something wrong and there's a great big spotlight on it because, what goes on social media it becomes public access for everybody. Anyone can see it. All it takes is someone screenshotting something, even if they realize after the fact that maybe I shouldn't have done that. If it's screenshot and it's sent around, everyone can see it. And so the thing is that we have this situation where you can have one or two people doing the wrong thing and it's impacting the great many now, compared to before where everything would be sort of kept within the confines of the group where it was happening. And so I guess my point is I get the unfortunate privilege of seeing a lot of bad behavior online. It's why I do what I do, because we want to help educate people to do the right thing so that the industry can grow. But we've been seeing so much clickbaiting and fear-mongering and, of course, unsolicited reach outs and promises that people can't make. And, so I guess where I'm going with this is, what do people need to be aware of when they're looking to join a company? How do they make a good decision if they're thinking, is this a company I want to be associated with or not? And I don't want to find out the hard way. And I get called often from people who are in the industry who are looking for, whether or not their company is stopped operating and they're looking for a new opportunity and they're wondering what's going to be the right fit. How do they make a decision? What do they need to look out for that they know means that they're going to be joining a safe company?
Look, the answer to that is, I think, use your common sense for a start. I think, of course, some things are a little bit tricky, but I think if you do your homework and don't rush in, that would be my advice. People see the income claims particularly and things like that. They're the ones, you can make all this money on this, you can do that. Well, like I said before, if everyone was doing that, it'd be, of course that would be a great opportunity. But I think the best way to approach it is go slowly, do your homework, check around, and check with us too. I mean, we're here as the watchdog for our industry, and we have a lot of calls and emails from people saying, hey, do you know about this company? And we very respectfully give them advice based on what we see. We don't just look at our member companies, but we get information about other companies who are maybe operating in the background here, and we do our homework on those, and we can give people advice and steer them to where we think they have an opportunity which is going to be a good experience for them as opposed to a bad one. So that's kind of, I think that would be that would be my advice.
Yeah, awesome. And so that then kind of ties in with the next question, which is, what do we do if we find out about something in our industry that could be considered a scam, or we want to kind of fact check, or, we see some bad behavior that we think is possibly damaging to the industry? What's a first step for somebody that is like, hey, I really want to help here?
Yeah. I think the best thing they could, again, call us. I mean, we're happy to assist with that. There is, you also have the ACCC in Australia, the Competition and Consumer Commission, and they are there to protect consumers and business owners from these types of things. And even if you haven't had a bad experience, but you're aware of people who have, they normally follow up on a complaint afterwards. But we try and alert them to anything that we see that could possibly damage the reputation of our industry, or particularly is operating outside of the boundaries of good consumer practice. So I would suggest we're the first step, and then ACCC is the second.
Yeah. Awesome. And I think there's also one other thing I want to kind of bring into the conversation here, and I guess just alert people to. And, we talk about compliance within companies a lot. So, the companies will often share what is compliant to share online, such as, income claims, even if they are TGA listed, which is the Therapeutic Goods Association, and they're talking about, health claims, etc. There's all of that side of compliance, but there are other two other parts of compliance that I think are not spoken about quite so often. And they are, number one, compliance to the direct selling industry, which is making sure that what you're doing online is a good representation of the industry as a whole, because what you do does impact others, and your companies may be different, but the behavior is I guess labeled as an industry behavior. And so, what you do online, is a representation of this industry as a whole. So please be mindful of that. And if you do see somebody, or even if you have a leader, and this is the other thing, there are some leaders that are incredible business operators. They're a great influence. They're, above board. They're teaching really great things. But there are some out there who have learned to build a business, by cutting a few corners. And I just want to be a little bit mindful that, we do have the ability to be able to step up and represent the industry as a whole as well. So, there are things that you can do and should do to help make sure that people are operating the right way online, so that we don't end up, making the situation any worse. But then there's the third part that I just want to mention, which is actually compliance to the social media platforms themselves. And because of pyramid schemes and a lot of this bad behavior, or what we would consider to be bad business behavior, and promises that, are not real, we have a situation where Facebook, Instagram, even TikTok, they're all banning direct selling from their platforms and making it harder and harder and harder for people to build business in this space. And I personally, I think that that this is really unfair, because they are just another type of business, and you wouldn't ban any other business type, but it's because of that behavior, unfortunately, that happens. So, Geoff, have you found that you have, you've got a totally different battle to face now that you've got the online world as well, with when it comes to compliance?
Look, we do, and we often get sent pictures and videos and things like that we have a look at. But I'd have to say most people are pretty good, and the level of compliance management by our members today is very good, and I'd have to say it's high on everyone's radar. All of our members, they don't want to get into trouble with us. They particularly don't want to be called out for bad behaviour. And so they're pretty vigilant about stepping in. I'd say very vigilant about stepping in and making sure that if it's flagged that someone is doing the wrong thing. So yes, we do see a bit more activity. I mean, there's a lot going on online, isn't there? I mean, it's a frenetic place. And people nowadays are sharing. Everyone's an influencer, and many people have their own identities, influences, podcasts, all sorts of things going on. But as I said, I think there's a lot of scrutiny around what's happening online. As you said before, Sam, people can get chucked off some of the major social media platforms very quickly. But that's up to, part of our job is to make sure that we continue to promote the industry and the good things that we're doing and the vigilance that we have to those organisations, to make sure that, we're not put into the wrong box as we go along.
Yeah. Yeah, awesome. Well, Geoff, I want to go from a very serious conversation now into quickly asking you my 4 favourite questions here. And I don't know if you saw these on my email, so you may not be very well prepared for this, but I'm going to throw them at you anyway. You did?
I did.
I normally pre-warn someone before just in case they miss them, because I have had a bunch of people get very caught out with these 4 questions. But I'm really keen to hear what you got to say with these. So the first one is, what's your favourite book to add to our accelerator book list?
I don't know if you'd want to put my book on there, but I'm sure you're talking about more inspirational, motivational. But I've read just about every self-help book and motivational book there is. I'm sure you have too, Sam. And so I still do read them. In fact, my brother-in-law wrote one just this week about bosses behaving badly, which is great. And I've written one myself some years ago. So I'm not unfamiliar with the space, but I tend to feel a little bit overloaded. And so I'm going to go a little bit out of off the course and say that the best book I've read recently was A Gentleman in Moscow, which is to me, also an inspirational and motivational book. It doesn't have to be something that's specifically written in that genre, but I loved it. It was very uplifting, even though it's written about a time of fairly great upheaval. It's got a lovely humanistic approach. It's got a nice, happy story, nice characters. It's respectful, and it makes you feel good about yourself. And I think if you're reading a book and you come away with that and a few tips about how you can perhaps be a better person, I think that's something good. So I highly recommend that one.
Yeah, awesome. I think that's very true. A lot of people assume that, particularly in business, if I'm going to talk about a book, it has to be a business growth book or a self-help book but at the end of the day, if it's something that grows you in any way, whether that just be that you walk away with a smile on your face, I think that's a really positive thing. So
Me too.
I love that. I'm going to have to check that one out. And just in hearing you talking about it, it reminds me of one of my favorites, The Happiest Man on Earth, which I've recommended to so many people, and everyone I recommend it to reads it in a couple of days. They just power read it and they just come out saying what an amazing book it was and how very special it is by
I've read it too, Sam. I loved it. It was very inspirational.
So, Geoff, next question I've got for you is, if you could have a superpower, any superpower, what would it be and why?
I'd have lots of them, but I think
you get one. You get one.
Yeah. Look, I don't want to be Superman or Batman, although I love Batman. He's my favorite. I think I'd rather be Humility Man. So if I could have that as a superpower, I've got 2 daughters, and their greatest, I think, they have a lot of great attributes, but one of their great attributes is their humility. And I love that about them, and so I'm always trying to be a little less like myself and more like them.
That's pretty impressive that you're wanting to be more like your children versus them being more like you. I like that. I think that's a really good sign of a great parent right there. Don't have them be more like me. I want to be more like them. I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
I actually, do you know, it's funny. I'm going to speak into another podcast episode. I'm not going to give anything away, but I did an interview this morning with someone, and for the very first time ever, normally I get things like humility. I'm going to help people to heal the world. I'm going to take away sickness. I'm going to take away disease. I'm going to, be empathy man or woman so I can feel everyone's, be empathetic towards everyone. These are the sorts of answers I get. This morning I asked this question from somebody, and her response was, I would have like a superpower where I can go unseen into any location and take something so I can rob banks.
I love it.
I just, like, of all the places that you would go with that question, I thought that was hilarious. So there you go. Humility is a good one, Geoff.
All right.
Okay, second to last question. What's your favourite quote?
I was going to share another one with you that I had, which is from an author and a speaker I used to see a lot, Tom O'Toole, his name was. And his quote was, none of us is as strong as all of us, which I love. But I changed my mind then because I was reading an article about Kylie Minogue, which was in the paper on the weekend. And she had a lovely quote in there. And she was talking about reinventing herself. And this is about her 6th reinvention, apparently, that she's just done. Inspiration and motivation are found in that blank space of possibility.
Awesome. I love it. And very last question, if you could go back in time and say one thing to your past self, what would that be?
I think I would say, don't be afraid and believe in yourself. One of my favourite quotes was from Roger Federer, after he came back and won one of his things. And he said, look, just believe in yourself. And I did believe in myself, but if I was going back in time, I'd say believe in yourself a bit more and don't be afraid to take a risk.
It's been so great chatting with you again today, and I just want to really come back to, I guess the heart of where this conversation all started, which is, you and I, like everybody else who has been on this podcast, is really passionate about this industry, not just surviving, but absolutely thriving. And we're in a time right now where not only is that possible, but, we've got the ability to reach people all over the globe. We've never had that before. In the last 10 years, there's been such a big shift, and, the impact that people in this industry can have is huge. But also we have to be very mindful because, there is kind of that element where people can be doing the wrong thing. And so we do want to also be protective of this industry, and we want everybody to be standing up for it in the right way. So be mindful. If it walks like a duck, if it quacks like a duck, it's probably a duck. And of course, the amazing Direct Selling Association of Australia, I just want to thank you guys as well for all the work that you do to advocate for this industry, and, keep up the good work. I think it's so great to know that we do have an industry body that is looking out for all of those many, many, many thousands of people that are growing businesses and changing lives in this space. So thank you very much.
My pleasure. Thank you, Sam. And thank you for everything you do. I know you spend a lot of time talking about people doing the right thing as well, and that's terrific. And I think I'm the eternal optimist, and I think our industry continues to grow, and we see companies offering wonderful opportunities to people who are thriving when they couldn't thrive anywhere else. And it's so lovely to see them achieving these things. It's great. So let's continue to promote that.
Absolutely. Awesome. Well, thanks again, Geoff, so much for joining me today. I appreciate your time and for being another honoured guest on the podcast. And thanks again, of course, to all of our beautiful listeners for tuning in again this week. And I hope you walk away today with just a little bit more knowledge to help this industry to grow. So thank you, guys, and we'll see you again on the podcast next week. That's it from us, and bye for now.
Thanks, Sam.
Thank you for joining us in this episode of the Direct Selling Accelerator podcast. If you love listening and you found that this was helpful for your direct selling business, please like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can also check out the recommended video that's popped up on your screen right here. I look forward to seeing you again next time. Bye for now.